So we're here for a podcast special.
We are, yeah.
Phil Hindes has brought literally the entire inventory of BBC with him on his bike in the tiniest sack you've ever seen. Actually, I have a bit of an issue with you because we're on a little bit of a cycle day today, and we're going to Wrexham.
We are, yeah.
Doull organised it.
Let's call it North Wales. It sounds better if we say North Wales, not Wrexham. But yeah.
No one's bad.
Well, no, let's do a quick introduction of who is here, and then we'll cover who isn't.
Right.
So we'll start with
Chris Lawless.
Thanks for that introduction, Chris Lawless.
Cheers,
It's
mate.
more than just a name.
Put middle names in as well if you want. Chris Roscoe Lawless.
Can you give us anything more than that?
Baby girl.
Okay, great. So we'll start from the. We've got Phil Hindes here, obviously.
Yeah.
Adam Blythe,
How you doing?
who's the who's as you said, cheating on his regular podcast slot.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, I wonder what you're going with then. Sorry?
Pure panic setting it.
And do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, Owain Doull. Basically, so what we're doing today is a bit of an impromptu podcast, but the idea and the premise around today is that we're going to ride from Wilmslow, where most of us are based, to North Wales, kind of like a...
Wrexham.
Yeah, Wrexham. 73k, it's not that far, but day after Nationals, so keeping it a bit low-key, kind of for bike packing stuff, so handlebar bags. Lawless has got a tent attached to the back of his bike.
Lawless has the biggest. Well, to be honest, Phil, you could have dealt with something like so. As I was saying earlier, you've brought a lot of kit with you, but you have bought the smallest bag going.
I know, I thought I ordered a pretty big bag, but it turns out it doesn't fit a lot of kit in there. So
Well, you actually recommended that I buy it, and as usual, I didn't listen to you and went and bought my own thing and did my own research, and it turned out much better. But you actually tricked us all at the beginning because you said that you had a very full bag. And then
It wasn't the case. I was struggling on my shoe situation. They were kind of like resting on my handlebar bag and like this kind of netting on the front. And Phil probably went for a poo, to be honest. And in that moment of opportunity, I found his bag, found there was a lot of space in the bag, put my shoes in there, and now he's adamant that I have to ride with his rucksack on because my shoes are in there.
I felt betrayed actually because that bag was suspiciously empty.
It's just a small bag. It's just a camel bag.
So Lawless, you were on our most recent podcast. How's the reaction been to your podcast so far? The Podcrash appearance?
Not positive.
Yeah, not too great. Some people said I was a disgrace. A quote from one person was, "That guy should never be allowed to speak in public."
Who said that?
Andrew McQuaid.
Isn't that the guy who's meant to sing your praises from day till night?
Nah, Andrew refuses to work with me. It's his cousin that tries to sing my praises. But I was hoping for better. But
Well, it's good you're back on now. Let loose on the
Yeah.
podcast once again. So let's talk a little bit more about the idea for today.
Oh, what we're doing?
Yeah, the whole
So
a route preview. Actually, maybe that's a Blythe thing. You're on Eurosport these days.
Well, I was going to say, basically, we were going to, for a couple of us, we've all got a week off now after Nationals, and week of no riding, and I've always wanted to do kind of like a tour in my, ride from one place to another, handlebar bags, all that, stay the night somewhere and ride home the next day, and it kind of fit into the schedule. So riding from Wilmslow to Wrexham, stay in like a pub, this old pub kind of inn thing, get there, dinner, couple of drinks, bit of a lock-in, and then ride home the next day. So that's the premise of today.
it's only 15k, isn't it?
We've only done 15k
Yeah, we've
so
only done
far.
15K.
That's the shocking part, and we're at a pub. But no, it's going to be.
It's a lovely pub, though.
It's nice. One of Adam Blythe's recommendations.
Nice pub. Yeah, I'm only coming along for the first 15k.
When did
Well,
you get? When
at,
did you
at,
see?
at the
we will
minute,
see,
he says that,
Yeah.
but he's going to be in Primark in Wrexham soon. Buy some
Yeah.
clothes.
He's come with nothing as well, so I'm gonna say that he just showers in the kit he's wearing now, gives it a good old scrub, give it a little towel trick, and you'll be good to go for tomorrow.
So what's the towel trick, mate?
Well, that's where you wrap it up in a towel and you wring it dry. You know this.
It's one of the first things you learn on talent team, mate.
Fair enough. Yeah. Oh, towel trick. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
the
do know what
towel
you're on about
trick.
now, yeah,
Trowel trick.
Towel. So we've had some
Yeah.
we've had some nice northern pies as well. From what did you think of the pie? Pie connoisseur Chris Lawless from Preston.
Wigan, mate.
Wigan.
Yeah, goodbye.
Thanks for that insight. And
and you could, if you haven't listened to Chris's podcast, you can see why it was such a hit with the listeners.
So you guys were racing yesterday. Let's hear a little bit about that. Adam, do you want to kick off in your take of nationals?
Shambles, mate, is an absolute shout. You can see why. We were chatting about this. I'm not going to hold back here. British racing has gone mad. Everyone's just obsessed with being aero, wearing aero socks up to their knees, riding on the bloody tops like they've got spinachs on the bikes.
Do you want to name any names?
No, I do not want to name any names.
Because the person you might want to name the name of is going to come on the podcast next week.
80% Dan Bingham.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though,
I've got nothing against Dan, apart from he's like all these people that do all this aero testing and everything. It's great if you're doing aero testing, like you save your watts. But if you ride around in a peloton, you're not saving watts. You're in the middle of a bunch. And fair enough if you go out the front, but there's a lot of guys there with one number on yesterday. And this isn't about the race, by the way, but UCI rules, 2 numbers, wear 2 numbers. And you can't tape things onto your bikes and all that stuff. And I think that's just like an example of where British racing is going. It's absolutely shit. Like, no one's bothered about racing anymore. They're just bothered about being aero. And you could see that yesterday, couldn't you? Racing around. I'm not looking at Lawless because he followed me all day.
Do you more fussed about the style, though? You need to go fast but look good at the same time.
I couldn't believe it. And you said there about naming names of people doing that. You can't even name names because it's the majority of the bunch. You know, you have people there with like TT skin suits on, which like zip up the back, no pockets on their jerseys, and it's like, yeah. To be fair, I like
no bar tape. One guy.
Most of the time, I will race
with
with aero socks on.
Don't
get me wrong, and I'll race with a skin suit, but like a road skin suit, you know, with pockets in. And it was just, it surprised me, to be honest.
By the way, if you're looking for aero socks, hit me up.
Yeah, did she actually start
hold on. So we're saying all aerodynamic stuff is shit, but by the way, if you want to buy some, come to me.
No, but my aero socks are just normal socks with aero sock written on the side.
Have you not seen it?
So it's like a non-aero sock.
Oh, well, that's good to
just
explain.
decide to start your own sock brand?
I just thought, fuck it, because it's not, sorry I keep swearing, but it's not
That's
like...
no, we love swearing.
Aero socks are just, like, it's irrelevant if you're in a bunch, which 90% of the peloton are all the time.
Yeah,
it's like an aero sock's an aero sock. So I just got normal socks with aero sock written on.
And I think, you know, like aero socks and all that kind of stuff, skin suit, that's all come into play, especially in like World Tour stuff, because say if you've got a day and you're defending a jersey and, you know, you've got a sprint and, you know, you have to pull for 200k on the front. If you have aero socks on and a skin suit, it does make a difference. But like Adam said, if you're sitting in the bunch all day, it makes no difference at all.
I'm all about being aero, like every little helps and all that stuff, but there's just a limit, I think, where you go, right, come on, we're not doing a time trial now, we're doing a road race. Like, you got to look after yourself in that kind of way. But back to the racing.
Yes.
It was a nightmare.
Oh, okay. Well, Doull, you had a little spill.
Yeah.
Get down.
Yeah, I was just surprised across the board. You know, Nationals is one of my favourite races of the year, probably the same for most guys. It's always a really cool day. And can I
just pick you up on that slowly? Because a lot of people said that British cycling didn't like make a big enough of a deal of it being the national champs this time. You know, there's a lot of people showing up to the finish line the day before and saying like, "There's nothing here. There's no adverts. There's like no buzz about it this time." Did you feel that or not so much?
I don't know. We did a recon the day before and we were riding through Norwich and trying to find the finishes and stuff like that. And there was nothing up to advertise it. But I don't know. It wasn't a greatly ran race. There was a few incidents in terms of like the traffic stuff and the marshals closing roads. I had one incident. I was off the front on my own, and at one stage, I was met by a woman. She looked like she went back from the shops, head on with a car, and for maybe a couple of K through a town, I was riding through traffic. You know, this is the British champs. Cycling is a massive sport in the UK, and I've never seen a national champs like it. I just thought it was...
I think the problem is with it is that, like, the front of the race, once that front of the race had gone, the bunch was so far behind, didn't have enough motorbikes, cars, and officials to look after the whole thing. So eventually you're going to have to leave one part of that race sort of behind a little bit, where you go, right, we can't look after this anymore. We need to look after the front of the race where it's all happening. So they didn't have enough infrastructure to look after the whole thing, where if you do laps, you got a closed circuit, so it's all completely safe. But yesterday, it's a fire engine coming towards us at one point.
Yeah,
it was just
and
ridiculous.
And I think for sure, if you're in a World Tour race, it's not going to split up as much as that in so many groups. But you know what you get with the Nationals. It's going to be in bits. It's going to be small. It's going to be group of 5 off the front, group of 5, another group of 3, group of 20, group of 30, whatever. You know it's going to be really, really split up. And it's not like this is their first time running the Nationals. They've been doing it for however long. So you have to prepare for that. And it was just a very bizarre race and everything across the board. It was a bit disappointing and a bit disheartening as well, because you see what's going on with the UK scene now, with Madison announcing that they're going to pull out and a lot of people struggling. And then you come back for the premier event of the year in the UK, and it almost matches what you're seeing on Twitter and stuff like that about what's happening with the teams and everything.
I think a big problem is that the way the UK scene works is that, I don't know if you know this, but every race that a British team does, it all counts towards Tour of Britain, and that's like the biggest stage for British teams. So every race they do, Nationals, every bloody Tour series, whatever they do, all counts towards points. So it ends up being not a race for a win, it's a win for a team. So if they can get 5 guys in the top 10 rather than one just winning, they might be like 3rd, 5th, 7th, whatever. That's better than an actual win. And that's why I think the whole scene's knackered, because it's not proper racing anymore. It's just racing as, let's get 4 guys in the top 10 rather than let's win this race. And it doesn't matter what happens to the rest of the guys behind.
I think going back to the...
Hold on, I was going to say, just before we move on to the overall arching of the race, I think what the listeners are dying to hear is your take on the race, Chris.
Yeah, I think going back to the start of the day though, you look at the lead car, just didn't have control of the bunch in the neutral, and that just set the stall out for the rest of the day. It was never that organised, and just it was pretty dangerous all day. There was no, I've never been in a race where at so many points I thought that was dodgy.
Now we come back to it. So coming into the race, you got away in the first 2K, didn't you? Saving yourself for the final, obviously. And then we got into it, and they've got the signs up for the Sportive, which were the same signs that we had out later on in the course. So I come through this town, and I was like, right, I'll try and I knew where the course was going, which I didn't know where it was going, but I knew where the Sportive was going, because that's what I recon yesterday. I didn't recon the actual thing because of these signs. So I was like, right, if I hit it through here, it might be a bit windy through these next lanes. So I hit out of this town, turned left, and that was a Sportive route. So to turn left, and I was like, there's a lot of traffic here for a closed race. Anyway, 2 minutes later, I just look back, 70% of the pelotons followed me. We went the wrong way. So we had to turn around.
Let's get these excuses in now. So you went the wrong way, you crashed, and your excuse is?
I tried going in the early move, which I thought was going to work. And didn't.
All right, fair enough.
He wasn't a breakaway, actually.
He wasn't a breakaway.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to Adam's point, it was just bizarre. I've never done it before in a race. We were literally winging along 60k an hour, bang left, and there's cars everywhere, and everyone in the bunch is going, oh, we've gone the wrong way, Everyone's doing a U-turn in a race. It's the national champs. What is this? It's an absolute shambles.
What kind of standard does that equate to for you?
Well, I've done a lot of races, whether that's World Tour, whether that's amateur commesses in Belgium or whatever, and it's never happened to me before. It goes back. Cycling is a massive sport in the UK. It's popular. British cycling make a lot of money, and it's just a shambles. And something's gone wrong. It was bizarre.
So I think that's half the trouble though. British cycling are essentially a business now. They're not. I think a business and a governing body should be 2 different types of things. The governing body should be pushing the sport forward. Whereas sometimes at the moment now, it seems like British cycling are just trying to make the money and not doing the best for the sport sometimes.
Do you think it had an impact on the results? All these mistakes happening on the race course?
I'd have definitely won if that didn't happen.
Well, talking about the winners, though, I think we're all pretty unanimous in saying that Swifty is quite good to see him get a result after the time he's had in the last few months.
I don't think the result would have changed yesterday. Yeah. If all this stuff didn't happen, it would still be the same result. The only thing that I think is different is that Nationals is such a gamble that it doesn't really matter on the course. Obviously, you've got to have the legs to do it, but there's so much luck involved with Nationals that you can't... It's like if someone asks you, who's your favourite today, who's your favourite? There's never a favourite. It's just who's going good, but you don't know, especially the British guys, was it Archibald?
Yeah.
He's obviously going good, but it's mainly at the end of the day, who's going good and it's got a bit of luck behind him.
So we put this into context for people who aren't the cycling nerds. We don't have as good a following as a cycling podcast, Adam, so I just feel like I need to bring this down a little bit. So basically Ben Swift had a ruptured spleen, really bad crash a few months ago, and to turn that around to win the British Nationals is a big deal. And then we've also got John Archibald, who came third in the time trial? Second in the time trial, and then third in the overall race, despite being on essentially kind of a British team, I guess. is like a massive deal as well when you're mixing it with the best of the best at the British Nationals, because that's the chance for all those guys to break through, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but this I'm not taking anything away from John. He did like 2 amazing performances. He's got the form and everything, but I think with the Nationals is when this sounds quite big-headed, but when we go into national, we've got a target on our back. If Doull moves, if Lawless moves, not so much you, sorry mate, but you've got away that early break. But it's like you have a target on your back. You sort of see, if someone sees us going, they're like, right, this is the time we need to go. We need to react to this. And if there's, like I said, there's no offence to John here. He was in the right place at the right time, and there's no taking that away from him. He did a great ride, but no one's watching him. And it's the same with all those other little teams. Like no one's watching them. Whereas if we move, it's like, they're going. We need to go with it now.
A lot of people see it almost as like a free ticket across to the front of the race. They think, okay, if this guy's going now, he's probably going to get to the front of the race and go with him. I think a really good example of that is Connor Swift last year. Obviously, riding for Madison, he's a really fucking good bike rider, but he was kind of a bit under the radar. So you kind of have that freedom to allow him to do that. On the flip side, this year he's racing, defended national champ. He rides for Arkea now, like Pro Conti team, big team, and I think he probably understood how it is now when you do the nationals as a kind of a proper professional. You know, every time he jumped, he had people on him, and that's because again they think, oh, okay, well, if he's going now, this is obviously a good moment, and he's a good wheel to follow, and it makes it from our side, makes it really negative racing. And to be fair, if I was a British rider, I'd be doing exactly the same thing. I used to do the same as an U23. If I saw a World Tour guy moving, I thought, this is a good place to go. I'm better off if there's a World Tour guy going. I've got a better odds of getting to the front of the race than if I followed another Conti guy.
Yeah. So that falls into what Adam's saying a little bit, as in there's no favourites. So people default to the best teams out there and the guys who have done best in the past. It's not necessarily the person who's favourite for that course. It's the person who's got the target in the back.
No, I think that's what makes National such a nice race, but such a different race. There's no race like it in the whole year, where you could be the greatest guy going. Like, look at the Slovakian Nationals, Peter Sagan. He was racing there. He didn't finish top 3. His brother won, and there's always stuff behind it. But I think and we spoke about this in our team meeting with Ineos before. First stage of the race is you have to get yourself into the race, and whether you can do that, if it's a hilly hard course, you have no stress because you can choose a point on the race. You say, right, everyone's going to go full gas here. If you have the legs, you have the legs. A flat course like Norwich, you're limited to an extent by luck. And if you can get away, then you're in the bike race. But like a good example, last year we did Rydale, and it wasn't the hardest course in the world. And like Ian Sen, I did in Swiss with him just before that, and he was absolutely flying. He was going unbelievable. But there was nothing he could do in the race because he was trapped. He was locked in that peloton. He couldn't get away, and he was out the bike race.
Is there a difference a little bit? So so we were talking to Lawless, and you were obviously about Tour de Yorkshire and all that kind of stuff. Like, this is more of like an Ineos Sky question. Like, you guys are able to, sit at the front, control the race. Do you have the numbers to be able to do that at national championships, or is it a free for all?
No, that's a bizarre thing because normally in a bike race you have between 7 and 8 guys in each team. Nationals, for example, most of the Conti teams will have between 10 and 12 riders. Maybe some teams even have even more than that. Like Madison or something, maybe have 15 guys. Ineos, we have 4 guys. So we're already on the back foot. So in terms of the numbers advantage, it's hard.
Well, it's unusual, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, again, that's what, going back, like that's why Nationals is such a good race, because it's just such a unique, different race. But it's you don't race tactically, you don't race Nationals the same as you'd race any other race. It's strange.
So for Phil, like doing the British Nationals as a splinter,
Yeah.
do you feel like, I always felt like there was a little bit of a target on your back being a guy on the squad compared to a guy who wasn't. Like, you didn't have anything in Nationals. In essence, you didn't really have much to gain, but you had a lot to lose. So it's like everyone expects you to win, and that's fine. But if you get beaten by a guy who's up and coming, that's a disaster.
But I think for us, because we never really taper for track nationals, like we use this like a training race or anything. We know that a lot of the other British guys, they taper for these. So, and especially get beaten by someone who isn't on the squad, probably hurts your ego, doesn't it? So
Disaster.
you don't want to get beaten by someone you should be beating, really. So. And
then Adam, so obviously like Lotto Sudal put you underrepresented in the Nationals race. How does that work for you? Are you pretty much there as a solo rider, or do you have people that are going to help you out, or how does that work for you?
No, so I'm completely on my own, which I quite enjoy though. Really, it's like the Nationals is I know it sounds daft, but it's like my kind of race. It's a lot of luck on the line, but it's also trying to read the race, and I really feel like I'm really good at trying to read a race and know when to go and stuff.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree with that. You know, like I think if you ask most of the British World Tour guys, Nationals is kind of like Blythe's race because he's a smart bike rider. He's got the skill set to go about that, and it plays to his characteristics. But at the end of the day, there's still that element of you have to have the cards go your way. You know, like I think if you're super strong, someone like Yogi, you can almost bulldoze the race into submission. But there's not many guys like that. I think Adam's one of the people who, and it goes back to what you were saying before about Lawless following around all day, because Lawless probably did, because he knows Blythe knows the moments and when to spend his pennies and not.
Yeah, it's like I went into that early move yesterday, and like if you look back at previous Nationals, a lot of the time the winners come from the early move, but because of the way the wind was yesterday and there was nowhere really to split the race up, there was no chance for a smaller group to come across to the front, which usually happens at the Nationals. So yeah, then when I did get back in the bunch, as soon as I saw Blythe moving, I was like, well, he knows when to move, especially on a race which is so unpredictable.
But you guys are all talking about the wind as if it's like a major factor yesterday. Can you try and break that down as to why that was an influencing factor in the race?
Yeah, so we went up the coast yesterday, and normally along any coastline there's always wind. Don't matter which way you're going, but it was in the wrong way, headwind. And because there's not many hills along yesterday's course, well, there was, but not major hills, wasn't hard enough, but the wind was like the major factor in it. If something might happen, it might happen because of the wind, not because of, because of the course. Sorry. So I think everyone was expecting something because of the wind, but it was just massive. Sorry. it's just in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
What was burps for, Adam Blythe?
Just a little cider burp.
Cider burp.
But it's exactly that though. Like some Nationals, you'll have a great course. And some Nationals can get the balance perfect between meaning that anyone can win, but it has to be a strong rider, whether that's a sprinter or a climber or whatever. The Nationals on Sunday, or yesterday even, sorry, it was a pan-flat course. And we speak about the wind a lot. Other Nationals, we probably wouldn't so much, because you'd have something which you could say is a key point in the race where you say, okay, we can make the race here. Because it was so flat, we're then trying to look for that point where we can make the race. And the wind was kind of our best shot because it was pound flat. You're like, obviously we're World Tour guys and we're racing against some domestic guys, but the level is still really high. You can't just ride people off your wheel on a flat road. It's impossible. So you have to try and pinpoint that point where you think could be a crucial point in the race. And we before, saying with Ineos, we put a lot of emphasis on the potential that we could have crosswinds and try and make the race there. But in reality, there was nothing. It was...
The weird thing is with this whole race, though, is that Nationals, you know, you spoke about me riding on my own. Everyone's on their own. Even though all these big teams are in there, no one rides as a team whatsoever. Everyone is doing their own thing throughout the whole race.
That's what I was going to ask.
No,
and it makes it so hard.
But even so, like even the guys who are on like Madison and all that kind of stuff, like they're not leading for a rider, they're leading for themselves.
But saying that, actually, now I think about it, it's like, yes, what we got frustrated by, we spoke on the drive home yesterday, me and Owain, and what we were saying is that when you get into these moves, that people would say, you know, they'll be like, at one point there was like 40 guys going up the road, and you're like, no matter what team mate is up the road right now, no matter how many is there, that is not a gap that you should be let go in. That's a bunch.
It's not a good
that's
situation.
Not a break. That's a peloton in the front. And you get guys being like, no, I'm not chasing that because I've got a rider in there. You're like, yeah, and there's 39 other riders in there. It's like ridiculous, but people would go, no, I'm all right, thanks. But then at the same time, if you move, they've moved with you, and it's like, guys, it's a 40-man group. Just chase it down. It doesn't matter who's in it or not. It's too big a group to be going.
So when Lawless was off the front, would you have chased him if you knew you couldn't win the race?
Front, full gas.
No.
Or would you ride for Lawless then?
No, that's the weird dynamic, especially because everyone feels that they have a shot and everyone wants to do well. And also, I was speaking to Blythe about this yesterday, and I did, when I was with Wiggins in 2015, we did some of the national series stuff. And when Phil was a teammate, and it was.
I just Wiggins.
Yeah,
I did ride for Wiggins.
Not riding,
1 year.
Did you do any road rides?
No.
Oh yeah.
No, he didn't.
Oh, yeah.
He was
But-
he was shortlisted for the World Time Trial Championships. He was going to do
Ah,
the
that would've
first
been good.
500 meters.
And we
Nice.
discussed before I was the mascot of the team.
But I find UK racing really, really bizarre in the sense that when I did it before, just for that 1 year, and the small kind of taste I got from it, was that say if you have 5 UK Conti teams and a break goes, if every UK Conti team has one rider in there, they're happy and that's the race done. If one UK Conti team has 2 riders and all the others have 1, then the race will keep going until it's a stalemate and everyone has the same. And it's not that it could be a completely flat course and your guy in the break from that British team will be a climber and he weighs 50 kilos. He has no chance of actually winning. But everyone's just happy with that one person and what will happen will happen. And it's the same with the nationals in a sense. You know, like a break will go and you might have one guy, like say Madison, for example, last year, Connor Swift, really, really good bike rider, probably their best rider. But they could have a break of 10 guys going away and they have their 2 worst riders in there, but they're happy with it because they have the numbers or they're represented. But in reality, it's like they're not going to be able to win. You know,
It's wrong.
they're happy for it to go away, but it probably, if you looked at that break in the makeup, you're like, well, they're probably going to come 7th and 8th.
It's like they don't have confidence in any single rider to do what they're good at.
No,
They
I
just
don't think
like-
it's. I don't think it's that. I think it's just the way the race is working. And if you're in a World Tour race, say like completely random, say if it was on a course like yesterday, pan flat, and a break goes in a World Tour race, and say Froome was in there, or say like Kenny Ellison, complete pure climber, and Sagan was in there. Us as Ineos, we wouldn't be happy with that. We'd be like, well, let's bring this back because that's a lose-lose situation. We're just giving the race away. But it seems like in the UK scene, it's kind of like,
But
as
this
long
is
as
what
everyone
we're
has
saying
someone
about
there.
the whole point series,
yeah.
is that they've got points there, so they don't care about the win. They're just bothered about the points to get in Tour of Britain.
So
So it
let,
completely throws the race into the wrong sort of.
I think
scenario.
that's completely wrong. That qualification process for the Tour of Britain, it should just be like most other race organisers just pick which teams they want in the Tour of Britain up in the race, whether they look at past performances or who they think's gonna bring the most life to the race or whatever. But this points scoring thing to qualify for the Tour of Britain it neutralises every other race that them boys do all year.
The thing is, I'd say I disagree on that because if you leave it to the discretion of the organisers, you never know what's going to happen, whether money's exchanged and people with deeper pockets get in rather than merit. I do agree in the sense that I think there should be a better system of how to work it out. And
Yeah,
maybe
I'm
if you have like a development team, say like Wiggins, I strongly feel about this. Obviously, I rode for them, so my loyalty's obviously towards them. But you know what they're trying to do is they're trying to produce new talent and people who are going to go on to race in the World Tour at the highest level. You know, their turnout rate's been really, really good. You know, I've got myself and Chris here riding both from Wiggins,
Phil Hines.
Me.
for the Heinz Olympic
Yeah.
champ. But like Scott,
Two-time Olympic champ, please.
Scott Davis at Dimension Data. Obviously, Dibben was at Sky for a few years. James Knox is a Quick Step. You know, the turnout's pretty
I think that's
remarkable.
the thing that annoys me about the qualification process. Yeah, I think, like you said, there needs to be some sort of regulation and way of getting people into the Tour of Britain, but it negatively affects the teams that are trying to produce like young riders or teams that are trying to go and do international races. Because
I don't have the answer for it. Like, but it's not my job at the end of the day. But I think if you're sponsoring a bike racing team and you pump a load of money in, and then for some reason they decide that your team's not going in, then why are you going to carry on pumping in? I think you have to have some form of qualification process. But I think it should also support.
it should support
There
international racing
There
as
should
well.
be some kind of discretion about it. It shouldn't be a whole UK-based scene because you're not going to turn professional if you're racing in the UK all year round. No one takes interest in it. You need to be, if you're a
I
young
disagree.
guy.
Well, so that's a
disagree
question. Like, so
because
something
so
about
I did
like, so
I was good
I guess
before.
one of the big questions would be like,
I
is
disagree.
John Archibald going to get a pro contract off the back
He
of this?
should, but also these teams that do. So say if you do, I think if you're consistent all year, if you're good in the UK, this is what I said to James Shaw, the guy that left Lotto and he's gone back to Swift racing or whatever. But as I think with him, he was in such a good team that I'm in now, by the way. It's very good. But I said to him, look, if you're consistent through the whole year, if you're top 10, every race that you do, people are looking at him like, oh, he's not just good every now and again, he's consistent. And then he gets big races, Ride London, Yorkshire, Tour of Britain. And if you get good results in that, then people will go, he's not a one-off, he'll be
But
pretty good at this.
This is what I mean, though, with UK stuff. If you won say there's 10 prems in a year and you won 6 of the prems, you're not turning professional.
No,
But
yeah.
like it's different for you because obviously you're in that situation with NFTO, but you won Ride London. That's not a British domestic race. That's an international race which happens to take place in the UK. Same as Yorkshire, same as Britain.
Yeah.
So, and we're going back. So basically, we were discussing about the Tour of Britain qualification and how we're talking about the points and everything. And I was saying,
there's a lot of stuff went down when you were away.
It shouldn't be like that,
like
but you need some kind of balance between. It can't be down to the organisers to choose who's going in because I was saying before,
So I think
money
with
can
this-
change hands.
Yeah. So what
it
I
has
think
to be
with
fair,
this
but it
is,
has to be something which, like for Wiggins, for example, who their goal is to try and move riders forward, and the way to do that is to race internationally, so like Baby Giro, other
Yeah.
races like that.
So what I think with this whole process is about the Tour of Britain selection process is there shouldn't be a point thing. If you're a professional team and you pay bike riders, they are professional. If you don't pay bike riders, like a lot of teams don't, they're not professional. That's the long and short of it. Like if your profession is cycling, you're a professional. If you're not, like a lot of guys aren't in the UK, they don't get paid, but they ride for a professional team as they call themselves. They're not professional. That's not your sole profession. So I think the teams like Madison, everyone that gets employed and gets a salary, you are professional. They should be allowed into the Tour of Britain. The smaller teams, fair enough. Like put your bid in or whatever it might be. I know it might cost a bit, but that's your way into getting noticed on TV. That's your advertising as such.
Way of building your team, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. But in my opinion, if you're not professional and you're not paid monthly for doing what you do, then forget it. You shouldn't be. It's not that you shouldn't be allowed in the Tour of Britain.
Okay.
There's 4 teams above you that should be.
Well, that brings us on to a good point. So let's have a little round table, I guess. Each person saying, what do you think the British scene needs to do to get in a better place, and also what's your takeaway from nationals?
They definitely should take away that point system from the whole thing. I don't know enough about it, but from my opinion of it is they need to take out this whole point system. With this point system, it's just making the racing, it's nulling it across the board. They're taking away people's results, they're taking away people getting results that might be able to get contracts in the future because they're riding for 7th or 8th or 9th or whatever it might be just to get points to do Tour of Britain, which they might not do because they might not be selected for their team as well, which is ridiculous. So I think that's the main thing they need to do, but I've not done it. I don't really know what's wrong with it.
Yeah, I'm similar. I can sit here and bag it all day, but I'm not involved in it. I'm not educated enough in it. This is just my opinion from what I hear from other guys. If I could sit here and give a concise answer to why it's going wrong and what to do, then I should probably be running a UK Conti team. And I feel for all the UK Conti teams because it's like everything across the board. Everything's fucking hard at the minute. I think that's a result of Brexit and everything going on with Trump and everything, and nothing's stable.
Bloody political, innit? Trump's involved.
But
now.
no, it has an effect on everything. And I think if someone said, go out and find £1 million sponsor tomorrow, I couldn't do it.
Andrew McQuaid.
Trinity Sports Management.
Exactly. Trinity Sports Management.
It's I really feel for the whole scene because it's not an easy thing to do. So I couldn't really give an answer, but I think I do agree with Adam that the system they have at the minute is flawed, especially the Tour Series system with being a team event.
I was going to say that, yeah.
I think it should be an individual event, and whoever's your highest rider, you score points for that.
Yeah.
And if you win, there should be a bigger gap to the second place, so it's incentivized to win, and that's what cycling is all about. Someone crossing their line with their hands in the air, and that's the shot. They win, and their team take the pundits for that and everything.
Like bike racing.
Yeah, just normal bike racing.
Because the Tour Series used to be quite a big thing, like 3-4 years ago. Like used to be watch it on Channel 4 or ITV or whatever's getting ad, and it was quite a big thing to win a Tour Series. When Ed won it like 6 times in a row or something like this, and he became a hero in the British crit scene.
Yeah,
but
for
now
sure.
I don't watch it anymore, or it doesn't seem that interesting anymore.
I think it's a dangerous thing because I think the Tour Series has almost gone a little bit stale. So I think that's why they tried to bring this whole team aspect into it. But it's the wrong way of going about it. And again, this is just my opinion, and I don't know too much about it. I'm just looking in as an outsider. So it's not like I can say you should do this and this and this and this is going to work. It's good that they try something different, but it just hasn't worked. And I think you shouldn't be afraid of reverting back to what it was or think
I
of
think
new
as
ideas.
well is that we're not trying to take away from what like the Tour series does. Like Mick Bennett organises that, and he organises Tour of Britain. And I think he's just trying to combine the two in saying, right, you can do the Tour series to the smaller teams, and saying, by doing this, you might be able to get into the Tour of Britain, which is a great incentive. But I don't think it's right. But you have to take your hat off for him for keeping these races going.
No, for sure.
It's massive.
Oh, he's one of the big reasons the UK scene is still going. And I think it's great that he's doing everything above board and fair in the sense that you say, okay, if you want to ride Tour of Britain, you have to do this, this, and this, and this. And whoever's the best gets to go. But it impacts negatively against other teams. Like, again, going back to Wiggins, you know, if the Tour Series holds a lot of points for Tour Britain qualification, and that's obviously important to every team sponsors, and especially Wiggins, like all teams in the UK, because their British sponsors the biggest race of the year. For them, almost in a way, they could say, okay, instead of signing young guys who want to give opportunities to race abroad, we could go out and sign one of the best. Like, they could sign Ed, for example.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, we know we're going to get wins with Ed. He's going to get us that Tour Britain qualification. But they don't want to do that because it will take a large chunk of their budget, and it'll probably impact on the races they can do abroad and the opportunities they can give to younger guys. So it's like,
It's interesting
difficult.
what you were saying, Joe, about the Tour Series and the team, like how it's the team that wins, and how you were saying that's not bike racing. It's about someone getting someone across the line first and having a winner. That's touching on what I said in the podcast last time I did it with Callum and Phil.
That famous
That famous
appearance.
I think that's the biggest downloaded podcast out of all of them, isn't it? I think it's like, I think I got maybe like 5% in comparison to Lawless's 100%.
Mate, you're one of our biggest hits on the whole podcast.
Yeah, I think
more than
Yeah, but I'm humble like that. Lawless is trying to pick his own podcast up. He's like, oh yeah, if you're still listening, please download.
Should we get back to the original question?
Yeah. So the original question was, what's your points for the British scene and your takeaway from nationals?
Well, I think like for me, when I was involved in the British team riding for JLT, like we were very lucky as we had a good budget, which meant we could have riders that went off and did international racing, and then we still had a strong squad for the British races, which allowed us to get the qualification for Tour of Britain. So there weren't that much stress around it. But with the current Tour of Britain qualification process, it's hard to send riders away to UCI races abroad where they could potentially put themselves out there to get a World Tour contract when the team's got to think about qualifying for the Tour of Britain, because that is pretty much every British team's main goal for the whole year. So when you've got to put your strongest riders into a Premier calendar, which them riders don't necessarily want to do, they want to be going racing abroad and trying to get a pro contract. It's a hard one, and like, I think something needs to be changed about the qualification process, but I don't know what it is. But yeah, like Doull was saying, it's hard to not have a actual point system of some way, because then money could change hands, and it might be pretty unfair.
Let's kind of wrap up the whole nationals British discussion a little bit. Like, Adam, do you
Hold on.
like,
I just
have you
like
got
to
a point to
say, no,
say?
I just wanted to mention, I hadn't really thought about it
Take your
before.
soapbox, mate. Here you go.
But Lawless mentioned JLT then.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the best teams going.
Mm.
Like, hats off to John
Longest
Herity
running
for
comedy team.
everything he did for the UK scene. And you look again, all the people who came through that, I think he got the balance between having to support the UK scene because it was important to sponsors and because he enjoyed it, but also giving young guys the opportunity to race abroad. And that was like literally the perfect team for the UK. Really professional. They looked after everyone. They gave people opportunities, and it's just a massive shame that they've gone.
Okay, so I put a one challenge kind of one sentence question to you guys as we just fire round, including Lawless. So it's going to be like, what does the British scene need to do to get better? Like, just summarise it in one sentence if you can, starting with Blythe.
Take away that point system.
Take
Let
away the
bike
point
racing
system.
be bike racing and have done with it. And like I said about the professionals,
Yeah.
if you're a professional, do Tour of Britain.
Do?
Yeah, I'd agree. Don't try and overcomplicate stuff. Take it back to how it was. And yeah,
In the good old days when I was a boy.
good old days when
I was a lad.
when Legs Lambert was riding and romping around the UK in his national champs jersey.
Lawless? Baby go?
I think more variety of racing which ultimately comes down to
Gravel racing or
No, I mean like UCI
Track
racing,
racing.
but that
cyclocross,
that comes down
Brompton
to
racing,
British cycling as well, pushing that.
penny
UCI.
farthing racing,
Trying to say something serious here. But that like,
tandem racing.
I think ultimately it does lie with British cycling and trying to push the more international races
Yeah.
to be in Britain.
Okay.
Because then, if you did want the points thing for the Tour of Britain, you could include them UCI races
So
within that.
So we can all say unanimously that like London being taken out of the UCI calendar is a bad step.
Well, I think
good step. I think
I
they've don't forget they lost Ride London, gained Yorkshire, which is 3 days, not one. So they've got three chances. Four.
But I think
4
this is a really good
chances, not
point
one
actually, which
chance.
we didn't speak about. Is there's good that say Yorkshire carries points for the qualification because Yorkshire is a real test. It's a really hard bike race, and there's other
It's not
big
that hard,
teams.
though, is it?
But there's other big
Hey,
teams.
we've got the King of Yorkshire here.
There's-
That's
no.
what I mean.
There's other big teams there which influence the race. So, for example, if you look at Yorkshire, all the top scoring guys from those British teams were guys who are former professionals. James Shaw, Mark Christian, Scott Thwaite, guys who can race at that level. And I think that's more important for a team in a bike race, is how they can perform in the bigger races rather than these smaller races, which are the UK scene. So I think what would be great is if there were more big international races where you still get the same, these Conti teams and some of the other teams getting in, but you also have bigger teams racing. You look at Belgium, you can race so many big races where you have Conti teams and all sorts, and it brings the whole level on, and it makes people have to raise their game. Because at the minute they only have to race the big races if they do Britain and Yorkshire. Those are the two big goals.
What's
But if you
mad
had
as
a couple
well,
more of those in the year, it'd be better for the whole UK scene. It'd be better for British cycling. And everyone would have to raise their games. That's the level
Well,
you have to rise to then.
I think that was like part of my point in like talking about trying to get more UCI
Why didn't you
races
say it
in
then?
Britain. No, but it's like it is true. It would push the level up if there was more international races that were in Britain.
but I
but
think
it's-
that's the
it's-
thing. Is
it's-
that people with Ride London, people complain about Ride London being a World Tour event now. That's the only, like, how big is cycling in England now? It's massive. There should be at least 2 or 3 one-day World Tour races in London, not just one.
Like, a World Tour
It's
event's a
ridiculous.
big deal. It's the highest classification of
But that's
bike
what I
racing
mean.
you can get in the
And
world.
there's only one of them in the UK. There should be at least 3, if not 4.
Like, look at last year. UK riders won the last 3 Grand Tours. 3 Grand Tours in a year. Like, we're one of the big cycling nations, and the fact that infrastructure isn't there to support the racing is crazy.
And only one British rider's ever won Ride London, I think.
Who's that? Who's that, Adam? Anyway, so we'll wind up the old. Phil, you got a quick point actually?
No, not a quick point. I just completely different topic, to be honest.
Well, I was going to change the topic as well.
Okay.
So I was going to say thanks for that wonderful insight into the depths of the British scene and British nationals. But we were just going to finish up this first segment of the podcast because we want to get another 2 segments in as people slowly get a few more burps in as they go, Adam.
Apologies. I'm
Yeah.
very sorry.
But we were going to just have a quick shout out now, I guess, for who bailed on this trip, who's meant to be on this trip to start with.
I'll bag him. Hugh Carthy.
Hugh Carthy,
Yeah,
dickhead.
You see you next Tuesday.
You ever met him, Callum?
No, never.
Yeah, so originally it was planned. We booked a load of rooms, and
G as well. Bloody G
There-
missed out.
there's a
Bloody
few-
blaming it on the tour.
there's a few flakers.
Froomey.
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 Broke his
Froomey.
bloody leg.
Oh, yeah.
Use that
No,
as an
so
excuse.
originally we had like a decent crop of us going, but
Boonen was meant to come as well. Where's he?
Tommy,
Hey,
yeah,
God's sake.
First name terms.
Hey,
Yeah, exactly.
can I actually ask you a quick question?
I think Boris Johnson was down again as well.
Can I
but
ask you a quick
that's-
question
that's
about
President-
Froomey? So have you seen this conspiracy theory that he faked his leg break?
Really?
That could be one for later, but
Yeah, I have seen it because you sent it to me.
Yeah,
Um,
meant to.
Did you make it
it's
up, Phil?
Actually,
What, leg
It's
break
actually
this?
meant to.
mate,
Recent one.
no, mate, it's actually insane how
It's meant to.
stupid some people are.
Yeah.
I don't even want to speak about it because it just adds fuel to
I
the
ain't even
fire.
heard it.
This is a
it's
conspiracy theory going
just-
around on Twitter that he
I-
faked his leg break because he spent like
He
a couple
faked
of
the
hours
whole
in the
accident,
ambulance.
apparently, and like I read stuff like that, and I'm like, there are some dipshits in the world, like literally. It's,
I mean, not to point the finger at Phil Hines, but he does love a conspiracy.
I love a
theory.
conspiracy theory. Even I thought that it's meant to.
yeah, exactly. I don't mind a conspiracy theory. Like I find it quite interesting to read sometimes.
Yeah.
But just just live in the real world. Jesus.
Well, so we'll wrap up this first segment of the podcast. We'll try and get a few more in. Is Adam Blythe going to be joining us later? Who knows? We'll find out.
Thanks for coming.
Because he says he really needs to go home, but he might have a mechanical later on. Who knows?
Yeah.
And Hugh Carthy, maybe we'll meet another day at some point, and John Diven and a few others who were meant to be here today, but sadly
Theresa
couldn't
May's
be.
at the next pub.
Is she? One absolute lad. So we'll follow up the segment.
Lawless is celebrity crushes in the next pub.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Kerry Katona.
Anyway, so we'll wind up the segment and we'll pick it up later in the afternoon. So listen out for Adam Blythe. He almost certainly won't be there, but give him shit on Twitter for it. So we'll find out later. Okay, we'll be back soon. Hi there, we're back and we've made it to Wrexham. Now, if you're listening to this and you're not in the UK and you don't know the distance between Manchester and Wrexham, it's about 200 k's.
Basically, it's not very far.
No.
It's quite far.
It's very, very far, and we're one man down at this point. So you might notice that there's no Adam Blythe in the second segment of this podcast.
Unfortunately, he had to go home, didn't he?
He did. He was talking. I mean, to be honest, it was.
He's got something called responsibilities.
Yeah, but it was good timing because he started talking about isofixes and cars and child seats and stuff, and I thought, you know what, this isn't what we need.
No.
What do you think?
No, I agree. I thought I'll take a step back for this podcast. I won't be as vocal, and then literally put my microphone down for a second. It was like, what do you think?
To be fair,
give us some banter. That's what we want. Some banter.
Well, the last podcast got a little bit heavy. There's a couple of guys talking around about.
So let's talk about the British scene now.
Let's not talk any more about the British scene and
apologies for that.
points.
I think it was for the three of us today. It was just a good platform to vent on, and we went a bit heavy on the venting, but
bit of a therapy session.
We're not gonna carry that vibe on for this.
Let it be known
special
that
part 2.
None of our listeners know about the points qualification system.
I know.
For the Tour of Britain via the Tour Series to get into nationals. So all I can say now is I'm very sorry for all you had to listen to there.
This is a very insightful podcast, educational if anything. You should change it on the section from sports to educational.
Yes, well, I'm pretty sure no one's left in any doubt at this point how unhappy the Pro Tour riders are with the points qualification system.
And you know what? Why?
Why?
Because they didn't win.
Oh.
No,
I
because
think
the qualification system has nothing to do with the
Phil,
result.
you're a bit
No.
edgy. Have you
Anyway,
got a
let's
few
not
beers inside
start
you?
the whole argument again about the British scene.
Mate, if you want to go in, I'll go in.
Yeah, so it took us actually like 8 minutes to ride 75k.
No, it took
8
us
minutes.
2 hours.
8 hours,
minutes?
I mean, not 8 minutes, 8 hours.
God, you're going fast.
I know, 8 minutes.
Well,
Contrary to what I saw on the bike.
Well, it was only about 2 hours 50 riding time.
Well, I left my house at 10:30 with Hindes bipping away saying, you're going to be late, you're going to miss it, all this kind of stuff. As he does, he stresses. And I got there, and basically, we got here about maybe 7 o'clock. So 10:30 till 7, it took us to ride
It's a very long time.
200 Ks. At least
200
Ks.
Yeah,
But we're here now.
we're here now.
And how's the bike store, Phil?
We haven't actually checked it out yet, have we?
Is it satisfactory or?
Okay, so to put this into context, when we arrived, Phil went, don't worry, boys. I've Googled this venue. I've done my research. There's a bike store here.
Where's the bike store? That was the first question. We rock up.
Where?
Nice, really rustic pub in Wrexham. Very picturesque. First question. Where's the bike store?
And it's one of the most classic British pubs you could ever imagine. So
Yeah.
why on earth would they have a bike store?
No, they actually do have a bike store, Lawless.
But we haven't seen it yet.
There is one. You just need to ask.
You haven't
It's behind
found
that
it
door
yet.
there. That's it. The bike store.
Yeah, you just need to ask for the bike store. Well, anyways, you put them in our little cottage we are sharing.
The
We've got a
cottage.
lovely cottage. Thank
Yeah.
you, Doull, for booking the accommodation. Unfortunately, due to the people that have bailed, we have had to give up one of the rooms for this evening. So myself and Lawless are sharing a bed this evening.
So you haven't got actually 2 single beds, you just have a double bed you have to share.
Top to toe, yeah. What's the matter? So what are the stories from today? What's the highlight from today's ride, Phil?
The highlight of this ride,
You didn't have any highlights. He
I
was
think-
suffering all day.
Yeah, I found out that my road riding fitness is actually shocking.
Abysmal.
No,
Very
I'd say
bad.
for you, it's an educational ride. You learned where the first pencil was ever made.
Yes, we saw that.
That's it. Yeah. Is that? I thought you were taking the piss
No,
when you
it's true,
said that.
mate. It's true. That's,
Where did
what do you
you-
think that monument's about?
I thought it was like a war memorial
Mate,
or
it's a
something.
massive pencil.
They don't just stick up plinths anywhere, Phil.
Maybe. Yeah.
Anyway, so Phil was suffering from pedal-stroke
so yeah.
1 all the way until pedal-stroke, let's say 500, because we didn't really go that far.
Well,
And
500 was downhill, so
yes, and all I heard from the back whilst I was on the front, time trialing the team to this location right here, right now, was moaning and screams of pain.
Nah, that was just a bit of banter.
And you were throwing out vicious accusations the whole time. Like, we were pushing on up the hills. I was with the King of Yorkshire, so I couldn't let that slide.
Because I looked at my Garmin. And we were going up the hills. For some reason, the speed suddenly increased because you were trying to drop me.
I don't think that's true.
It's
my
100% true.
personal highlight from the ride was when all of you guys went the wrong way.
Oh, sorry, what?
All of you went the wrong way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did send us in the long way. Yeah.
Classic Doull trick. Do it to me every ride. But
I don't know
did
why
get-
you full footed it then.
I did
Exactly.
guess. I did.
What's your tactic? Do you just sign left and then everyone keeps going straight?
No,
Um,
his tactic is when I'm on, say, the right hand side of him, he'll
Mm.
tell me to turn right. Because then if I don't turn right and he does, we'll have a crash. So
Mm.
I've got to commit to turning right.
Well, he says he has to commit. He falls for it every time. I usually, if I do a ride with Lawless, I can get him on an easy one, like a left or a right. He'll fall for that straight off the bat. The second one's a little bit more difficult, and then the third one's really hard, so I have to really plan. I have to give it a good hour to let him forget about it,
Mm.
and then kind of give it like a proper left. And sometimes I've done it before. I'll be on the left, he'll be on the right. I say, I'll turn left here, mate. Start anchoring in left. Slam on, and then go straight. And even that one gets him.
I mean, that's how the 6-hour rides just fly by, isn't
I
it?
think my record for probably wrong turns on Lawless's behalf has probably been 4 or 5 in a ride,
Oh, wow.
which is quite remarkable.
I don't know why you still
that many
fall for it.
times.
Because if I don't fall for it, we crash.
I mean, that's a solid
Hold
point
on,
you make
hold on.
there.
You
I
say-
don't want to crash on a training ride.
You say we. It's you. There's no we. It's you.
I think there wasn't many skittish moments today. I mean, Doull called me out for having very good, let's say, bunch etiquette.
Yeah.
We were riding
Phil,
up
on
a
the
hill
other
and you nearly actually fell into the ditch.
No, you pushed me into the ditch.
No,
on not
that-
one but two occasions.
That was after you actually nearly fell
yes,
into
but
the ditch.
I got out the ditch, then you pushed me back in the ditch.
Yeah, because it's funny. 4 or 5 years ago, we used to do a lot of roads.
We did do a
Mallorca
lot of
training
those,
camps. Was a lot better on the road. And then since then, really haven't done much.
That's an interesting point because the guy who took out a lot of the road that we used to do was Connor Taylor, but ironically now Connor Taylor coaches Owain Doull and Chris Lawless.
He does, yeah.
One thing I'd like to point out while we're talking about Mallorca camps, can you please recite the story of when you guys went to Mallorca as sprinters for a road camp and you had the pure amount of crashes, which I just still to this day find hilarious.
What, for the leaders?
Was that when Kian
The
Amadi...
riders ones, yeah. There was one on a descent.
Yeah, okay.
one-
So basically, I was the king of descending. You know, no one could touch me. I was like,
But this is day one at the camp.
yeah, basically every descent, I was,
Something like that,
I
yeah.
was like, who's a good descender in the Pro Tour? Anyone?
What's his name?
Sagan,
Nibali,
Alaphilippe.
Sagan, Alaphilippe.
Okay,
There's
so
lots of guys.
Basically, they didn't have anything on me. I was flying down every descent like an
Well,
absolute,
you weren't that fast. It was also pouring rain that day.
like an absolute. Yeah, because you were like driving Miss Daisy at the back, basically. But
I was just right behind the crush. I wasn't that far.
yeah, so I was an absolute weapon going down all of these hills in Mallorca, knowing the exact limits of my bike and the exact limits of my capabilities.
Day one.
Day one. And so basically, the coach at the time, who I won't name, now works for Australia, basically he thought, you know, I'll show this kid a thing or two. He thinks he's a good descender. I'll show him a thing or two. So he was following me, but because he didn't have the same joie de vivre, he crashed behind me. And Kian Amadi also crashed. But for some reason, Kian Amadi crashed, but took aim for this tree. You
and
could
there was the only tree
from
in
miles.
this area. Yeah.
Only train Mallorca, I think.
It was
isn't
like a mountainous landscape, and for some reason, Kian Amadi locks into this tree, and he thinks, "This is the thing I need to stop me." So it's like a cartoon, when what's that? Roadrunner, and what's the other guy in Roadrunner?
Kian Amadi.
Kian Amadi. So basically, he comically head butts this tree, and then just falls to the floor. Beautiful. I've never seen
I know,
anything
what
like
was
it.
You could have literally gone to the left or the right, and you would have been fine,
Yeah.
and just fallen into the dirt.
But Keenan Muddy likes to push himself to the absolute limit.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, so Phil's giving me the eyes to basically wind up this episode because it's dragging on. But yeah, we'll get Adam Blythe back on the future. We got Dan Bingham coming up in a couple weeks' time. Hopefully you enjoyed the Ben McCulloch-Young episode as well. Go down the table quickly, do your shout-outs for social media, all that kind of biz, and then we'll finish it there. So Chris Lawless, yeah. I mean, you've been on this podcast before. Don't look at me like you don't know what I'm asking you to do. What's your social media stuff?
It is at Chris Lawless 95 for both Instagram and Twitter.
Oh, lovely. Cool. And Doull?
I'm okay. I'll just pass. My
Alright.
Instagram's fine.
Anyway, so it's been a lovely podcast. Thank you for coming on, and we'll find the bike store later on tonight.